All right, everybody, welcome into the post-game show, Altitude Sports Radio 92.5 for In the Paint, Nuggets and Spurs reaction, a heartbreaker tonight at Ball Arena. My name is Dan Tanner. We'll break this thing down. This was a really fun basketball game to watch. I just wanted to start by saying this was an extremely entertaining game. I thought the style of basketball tonight was really, really positive, just sort of for the league overall. I mean, this is a marquee matchup. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I would go as far as to say this is the marquee matchup in the NBA right now is Victor Wembanyama versus this guy right here, Nikola Jokic. I get it. Wemby's only in his second year in the NBA, but he's one of the best players in the game already that quickly. Yes, it is that quick. And this is a matchup I look forward to seeing every year. Obviously last year was his first year, but if you listen to my post-game shows on the air last year, the first time that Jokic and Victor Wembanyama went up against each other, I said, oh my goodness, I have been waiting all summer for this matchup because I was really interested to see how Nikola Jokic played against a guy like Victor Wembanyama. And tonight was just an absolute masterclass, honestly, from both of two of the best players in the NBA. Now, bad ending to the game for the Nuggets, obviously. They lose the game because the Spurs go on a 10-2 run to end the game. Now, the last play of the game, obviously, is what I wanted to get into. A couple of things. Joker, I think, just kind of misread the court mapping on that last play, but in my mind, he's got to shoot that ball. Nikola Jokic does. I understand he has Victor Wembanyama on him, but I thought the Nuggets did a really good job later on in this game of attacking Victor Wembanyama at the rim. Like they were hesitant to attack him early on in the game. They were settling for a lot of threes. They had a lot of awkward shots at the rim, trying not to get it blocked by Wemby. But I thought in the second half, they did a really good job of just going right at him because, and Hastings was talking about this on the broadcast, and I thought he was absolutely right. When you have a guy like that on the floor, you just have to go at him. And if it gets blocked, it gets blocked. But it's a better option than throwing up these weird, unconventional, sort of quirky types of shots. And I did think the Nuggets did a lot better job of that tonight. But man, I would have loved to see Nikola Jokic shoot that ball. I know he has Wemby on him, but my point with saying that the Nuggets were going at Wemby later on in this game, well, they were until the very end. I just think I wanted Nikola Jokic to shoot that basketball. There was a little bit of miscommunication. Christian Brown in the corner. Russ was over there, mistimed it or whatever happened. I do think Joker has to shoot that shot. Now, with that being said, Nikola Jokic was phenomenal tonight. And honestly, I sort of thought his teammates let him down a little bit towards the end of this basketball game. I mean, it wasn't an efficient shooting night by any means for the Joker. 15 for 36 tonight. So sort of a weird night for Joker in that regard as far as his shooting efficiency goes. He was just 3 of 10 from beyond the arc. And the three-pointers for Nikola tonight, I thought it was going to be really interesting going into this game because Victor Wembanyama is such a threat to block shots, especially near the rim. I thought it was going to be really important for Nikola Jokic to get off to a good start from the outside, shooting three balls to sort of draw Wemby away from the basket. Now, Jokic did that. He took 6 threes in the first half. He only hit one of them, though, is the problem. So I kind of put in my pre-show notes, Jokic needs to take threes early in the game, but he's also going to have to make a couple also. He made one, but 1 of 6, I don't think it really made Victor Wembanyama stretch out from away from the basket a whole lot in that first half. So 3 of 10 shooting from 3 for Nikola Jokic for the game. But man, other than the three-point shooting, Nikola Jokic was phenomenal tonight. Got in a little foul trouble early on in the game. He actually had 2 fouls in the first quarter, and something you really don't see a whole lot from Nikola Jokic. He actually had to exit the game with about 3.5 minutes to go in the first quarter. Now, the reason I find that interesting is because I've sort of been thinking over the last couple of weeks in regards to the Nuggets rotation with their bench unit. I would be interested to see if Coach Malone would be open or receptive to playing Nikola Jokic at different points throughout the game. Now, what I mean by that is Nikola Jokic is obviously, for years and years and years now, his minutes are plays the entire first quarter, sits until about the 8 to 6 minute range of the second, then he comes back in and finishes the half, starts the third, plays all of the third or most of the third, sits out until about the 8 to 6 minute range conventionally, and then finishes the game. Well, I've been thinking about it would be interesting to see if Coach Malone experimented with that just a little bit, and not just because of foul trouble, but just to try it out, have Nikola go out at about the 4-minute mark of the first quarter. I'd be really curious to see the team try that, and then have them come back in to start the second quarter and play with that second unit to see if they can give them a little bit of a boost. I mean, I've heard people all over the place, myself included, talk about what can this team do to improve the second unit, because it is the biggest weak spot on this team. There's no doubt about that. Although I think Peyton Watson is evolving as a complete player. I'll get into that in just a little bit. But I thought it would be really interesting to see Coach Malone experiment with that a little bit. Will he do that? I highly doubt it. But I just thought it was kind of an interesting sort of a different type of strategy to employ as far as the rotations go. Just and mainly to help out the second unit. Have them go out around the 3 to 4 minute mark of the first, come back in to start the second. Maybe he plays 4 or 5 minutes, takes a 3.5 minute break, something like that, and then finishes the second quarter like he always does. So I was curious to kind of see how that worked out tonight, because he did come back in early. Now, he didn't start the second quarter, but he came back in earlier than he normally would. And, this is something that I would have to see multiple games of them doing that to really get a good barometer of how that works out. But tonight it didn't, I don't think it made a whole lot of it, much of a difference. But, man, is Victor Wembanyama a freak of nature? Like, that guy, he's so fun to watch, and he's just so massive. I'm watching the game, and Peyton Watson's a big dude. He's like, what, 6'8"? I mean, tall guy, big dude. He looked tiny next to Victor Wembanyama. I wouldn't say Nikola Jokic looks small next to Wemby, but he definitely doesn't look 7 foot when he's standing next to Victor Wembanyama. But as far as the rotations go, I did think that was something, just a minor thing that was interesting from tonight's game. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. Please feel free to, leave your comments and let me know. Would you be open to Coach Malone experimenting with Nikola Jokic, his rotation specifically, maybe mixing it up just a little bit? I'd really be curious to hear what you think. As far as Peyton Watson goes, I really think he's starting to evolve into a complete basketball player, and that's great news. I mean, it's great to see. I've talked about all season long how Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson coming off the bench are going to be huge this year as far as how that second unit's going to perform. And it's even more important now that Aaron Gordon is out and Russell Westbrook has been inserted into the starting lineup. So that's going to be really interesting to see. But those two are keys to the second unit as far as them being able to have any sort of production offensively. Peyton's been great defensively throughout his early career. I've talked about that at length. I think he's an excellent defender, excellent shot blocker. Saw a couple of really great shot blocks tonight, but I really think he's evolving into a complete basketball player. He's refined his game on the offensive end. I think he's really starting to understand where to be at on the floor. on offensive sets and situations. And when he's in there with Nikola Jokic, he is really understanding how to play with Nikola Jokic. He's cutting to the rim at the right times. He's okay from beyond the arc, but when he's taking threes, they're open shots and they're good shots. So I'm okay with it. If he misses it, but it's a good shot, that's my rule. It's kind of the same thing with Russ. My Russ rule is I don't want to see him take more than 2 3-pointers a game, and they better be wide open. But if they're open, take the shot. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from Coach Malone. He said that. If you're open, shoot it. He trusts his guys, which he should do. And Michael Porter Jr. has been doing that. I think he's been playing excellent of late. His 3-point percentage over the last 5 games is phenomenal. It's interesting to see how well Michael Porter Jr. has been playing since all of the trade rumors have been swirling about over the last couple of weeks. He has really kicked it up a level, and he has been dynamic offensively. And you know what? He's really improved as well as his defense. I mean, he had a couple of block shots tonight, hustling back in transition defense. He's really starting to find his game early in January of 2025 in the season. So that's great to see. And you know what? It's at minimum, it's making it a much harder decision for the front office in regards to if they want to trade him or not, which is a good thing either way, because he's either upping his value or he's upping his performance for the Denver Nuggets, which is fantastic to see. But as far as the bench goes, I'm giving them a teensy bit of a pass right now because, like I said, Russell Westbrook is in the starting lineup because Aaron Gordon has been out. They go 4 deep tonight. DJ gets action in 13 straight games now, so I think the Dario Saric train is pretty much over at this point. I mean, you never know, but it's not looking good for Dario as far as if he's going to play it all again this year. I suspect that he will, but is he going to be the guy with the second unit to like really anchor down the center position when Nikola Jokic is not on the floor? I don't see that happening this year. And again, DJ, love the guy. I get it. He's a fan favorite. I understand and appreciate what he does for the organization on and off the court, but he's not the answer at the backup 5. I mean, it's clear as day. So my concerns are still there. The defense, I thought they were switching way too much tonight. And I do think the Nuggets looked a little bit even more so out of sync tonight, more so than usual, even though the defense has been porous this year, to put it lightly. But I think the Victor Wembanyama factor really sort of kind of messed with them just a little bit tonight, because they were kind of just switching a whole lot. They didn't really know when to stay on Wemby in switches. There was a couple of plays where Wemby gets switched onto him. They're low in the post, and MPJ actually had pretty good position on him, but he just lets him roll right to the rim instead of staying body on him, and it gives Wemby, easy access to the rim. So I thought they were a little bit confused on the defensive end tonight, and that's just, I mean, you can be critical of the defense, and rightfully so, and I am as well. But man, is that guy a tough cover? I mean, he really makes things difficult and puts a lot of stress in all areas of the court on the defense. I mean, you had him pulling up from 35 feet and knocking down threes tonight. Dude, that's 7'3", 7'4", whatever he is. That's a really, really tough cover. And overall, I thought the Nuggets, especially in the second half, did a much, much better job just being more physical with Wemby and making him work for it. Now, what helped, obviously, is Wemby got in foul trouble early on in this game and early on in the second half. And you could tell to start the third quarter that Wemby had 3 fouls at halftime. You could tell to start the third quarter that the Nuggets game plan out of the break was just to go right at him and either try and draw another foul out of him or assume that he's not going to be as aggressive because he didn't want to pick up his 4th foul early in that third quarter. And that's exactly what the Nuggets did. So kudos to the coaching staff and Michael Malone for that, because the Spurs had a 60-52 halftime lead. Like, this was an 8-point Spurs lead at the half. And like literally the first play in the third quarter, Nikola Jokic goes right at Victor Wembanyama at the rim when he had 3 fouls. And then the Nuggets got off to a really hot start from distance in that third quarter. They started 5 of 5 from deep in that quarter, and they ended up actually having the lead at the end of the third, 90-87. So the Nuggets' run of excellent third quarters continue, but the fourth quarter just not enough execution on both ends of the floor. And then the final play, like I mentioned earlier, I really thought Nikola Jokic should have taken that shot. Even if it's not the best shot in the world, I would prefer Nikola to take that shot versus trying to make the perfect pass for the better play. But yeah, just a tough way to end this for the Nuggets. It looked like they had this thing. They had all the momentum by the end of the third. It was a really back and forth fourth quarter. I mean, the trading of threes tonight was spectacular. And it's funny because I've talked about how, a big story in the NBA this year, well, it's kind of come out this year, but it's really been over the last decade plus, that the NBA ratings are way down. And I've seen clips floating around X and everywhere of, here's reasons why fans aren't watching the NBA. And it's a highlight package of, oh gosh, who was it? It was like the Rockets and Grizzlies just trading threes back and forth, like brick after brick after brick. So it's like, okay, I can understand that. So tonight's game, I thought to me was almost like a renaissance in a way. I mean, it was still a lot of threes, but it was beautiful basketball and it was fun basketball to watch. It was back and forth. I mean, it just felt like neither team could really stretch their lead out to a significant margin. I mean, there was a time in the third quarter where, I take my eye off the scoreboard for a couple of minutes and I'm just watching the action and the Nuggets are on fire. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh man, all right, it's got a pretty good lead here. It's like tied up. You know what I'm saying? So it was just a really weird game in that respect tonight, but a fun game. And, these are always great matchups to watch, Victor and Nikola Jokic. I did pull up the numbers. Now, obviously, this is not including tonight's game, but I was curious. They had 4 matchups last season in Victor Wembanyama's rookie year. So in those 4 games, Wemby going up against Jokic and the Nuggets, his total or his averages from those 4 games, okay, he averaged 24 points, 11.8 rebounds, we'll round up to 12, and 4.5 blocks in those 4 games versus Joker and the Nuggets last season in his first year in the NBA. Now, on the other side of that coin, Nikola Jokic going up against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs in his 4 games, listen to this, 33.5 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 8 assists. So I get it. Wemby's a really young player, and my God, he's going to be the face of the NBA sooner than later. I mean, make no mistake about that. I don't know how long Joker's run of dominance will continue. It's not over yet, and I don't think it's going to be over anytime in the near future. But I would say within the next 3 or 4 years, Victor Wembanyama will take the mantle as the best player in the NBA. I mean, there's just I don't think there's any sensible basketball fan that can watch that dude play and not think that he is going to, at some point in the near future, be the best player in the game. Now, when that time comes is obviously we will find out. And make no mistake, Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the game. And Nikola Jokic was the better player tonight in this game overall, although Wemby was much more efficient than Joker. But Joker, I just thought, contributed in more areas overall. But it's a fascinating matchup. So give me your thoughts. Please feel free to leave your comments. We've got them rolling in right now. I'd like to get to some of these. Coach Castillo. So, I brought this up earlier. Well, worst defense ever. Why are they switching so much? Yeah, I brought that up earlier, Coach. I noticed that as well. They were switching a lot tonight. It did seem like it wasn't very effective early on, and then they kind of just continued to do that. But again, to what I said earlier, I think that really just comes down to the Wemby effect. I think he does that to a lot of teams, and he's just a really, really tough cover. So, we'll see. Kevin, hey DT, what's up, Kevin? Appreciate you listening. Let's see here. Let's see. Shay, Wemby 2-game streak on Joker, good game. Yep. Yeah, that's right. If you remember to last year, I'd have to pull up the box score. I don't remember, but it was late in the season. I think it was the second to last game in the season. The Nuggets had a chance to clinch the 1 seed in San Antonio, and the Spurs had just a miraculous comeback win over the Nuggets. And that was sort of the beginning of the end of that season. The Nuggets fought like hell to get the 1 seed. They lose in San Antonio to a really bad Spurs team, end up dropping to the, 3 seed in the playoffs last year. And the rest is history. So, yeah, that's a good pull there from Shay. You forget about that, man. That was a heartbreaking game in San Antonio at the end of last season. Let's see here. Kevin says, why don't we put MPJ in the backup 5 DT? Well, I mean, they have the backup 5. Okay, I'm sorry. At first when I read that, I was thinking you were saying with the second unit. That's something I have not thought about. That's interesting. I mean, he's certainly tall enough. Like, they put Aaron Gordon in there as the sort of plug-in backup 5 to Nikola Jokic, and MPJ's significantly taller than AG. I mean, at least by a couple inches. I would have to really that's something that would be a great question for Coach Malone, that I can see if we can get the answer to that, because that's an interesting thought. I've never really thought of that. I don't know if Michael Porter Jr. has ever played center in his career. Now, the beautiful thing about the Nuggets, and really just sort of the NBA as a whole nowadays in the modern era, is it really is sort of positionless basketball. I mean, I do still think positions matter, especially the way the Nuggets run their offense through the center position. That would be the part that I think would be very difficult for Michael Porter Jr. to adjust to, is being like having the offense run through him. I don't think he'd be capable of doing that. And that's not a shot at Michael. I just don't think that's part of his game. But that's a really interesting thought. I'd be willing to try it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would absolutely be willing for them to at least experiment a little bit with that, because the backup 5 has been such a massive void for this team all year. That's a really, really interesting thought there from Kevin. I just don't know how you really, if Michael could run the offense that way, because my whole thing with with whatever backup 5 they bring in, and this really kind of was the idea with Dario Saric, was to have somebody that, he's not going to be Nikola Jokic, but you need somebody that can run the offense, that can facilitate the offense at the 5 spot, because that's just what the Nuggets do. And nobody's going to do it to the level of Joker. I understand that, but just somebody that's competent and capable of running that second unit at the 5 spot. I just I don't think Michael would be able to do that, if I'm being perfectly honest. But hey, who knows? That's a really interesting thought, though. My guy Andon says, feel like Murray was not clutch when he needed to be like last season. This game was in hand, and easy shots and low energy defense in the last 3 minutes was a terrible look. Yeah, I've been very positive about Jamal over the last month or so of the season. He's really progressed well over the last month compared to where he was at the end of last year and over the summer with Team Canada and early on for the first couple of months of the season. There's no doubt about that. Jamal definitely has looked like he is sort of reemerged as the no question number 2 player on the team. But tonight, I totally agree with you. He sort of looked like he took a little bit of a step back tonight. We'll see if it's just sort of a blip on the radar, if that's going to be something to really watch moving forward. But you're right. I mean, he didn't look like he was super confident late in the game, taking the shots that he normally takes, which is odd to see, because Jamal has always been very, very confident in taking those shots, as we've seen through the course of his career. So I totally agree with you. I mean, he looked like he took a step back tonight, no doubt about it. It looked like a little bit slow out there. What was Jamal's stat line tonight? Let's take a look here. He was 6 of 17 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 14 points, and he was a -7. So yeah, a little bit of a regression tonight from Jamal. I mean, you had Nikola Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. combined for 63 points. The rest of the starters had 33. So the MPJ and Joker did their jobs tonight offensively. The rest of the team, just plain and simple, did not. Julian Strawther had a good game off the bench. He was 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, 4 of 7 overall, 11 points. But, you get 2 points from the rest of your bench and 13 points overall from your bench. I mean, look at the Spurs bench. 4 points from Zach Collins, 15, 16. Keldon Johnson had 16, Trey Jones 2. I mean, the Nuggets bench got outscored by like 20 points. I mean, there's your ball game. And I can count on one hand how many times the Nuggets bench has outscored the opposing bench this year. So, again, the same issues keep popping up for me that I've been talking about all season long. The bench being number one and the backup center being number two, and then just overall defensive structure and just defensive personnel has to be number three. And, I thought the Nuggets played pretty good defense in spurts tonight. They did not play well in the first quarter, but they sort of adjusted okay. I mean, they give up 32 in the first, 28 in the second, 27 in the third, 26 in the fourth. So every quarter got better defensively for the Nuggets by a very small margin, but they did sort of start to figure the Spurs out just a little bit. They figured them out enough to win the game. I'll just say it that way. And what they started to do in the second half, obviously, I mentioned earlier, Wemby was in foul trouble, but they also started to sort of double team him a lot more in the second half. I thought that affected Wemby a lot more in this game. So I'll really be interested to see the next time these teams play if the Nuggets decide to double Wemby earlier on in the game. I was a little surprised they didn't earlier on in the game because as great as Wemby is, probably one of the lesser tools he has on the offensive end is his passing. Now, he's a good passer. I mean, he has that in his repertoire. But, shooting, three-point shooting around the rim is obvious. And rebounding, he's elite. And the area where I think, and, if you double somebody, that's why you can't double Nikola Jokic. He's such a good passer that he'll kill you either way. If you double him, he's going to find the open guy. And if you single team him, he's just going to back you down to the basket and score on you. That's what makes Nikola Jokic so difficult to handle. Now, I think Victor Wembanyama will eventually probably morph into more of that, a facilitator role as he gets going in his career. But he's so deadly from 15 feet in, and he can hit, like we saw tonight, those really deep threes. So I will be interested to see if the Nuggets decide to double team Wemby in their next game in the season. But 35 points for Wemby tonight, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. He only had 2 blocks, actually. And like I said earlier, over the last 4 games last year, he averaged 4.5 blocks per game. So the Nuggets actually did a decent job of avoiding Victor Wembanyama near the basket to where he couldn't block a whole lot of shots tonight. And, there was a couple of fun moments between Russ and Victor Wembanyama. Russ, obviously, 17-year vet, future Hall of Famer, all-time triple-double leader in NBA history. And then you got Wemby, the heir apparent to being the best player in the game eventually. And they were going at it. And Wemby was kind of talking trash, and Russ was giving it to him a little bit. And then they had another moment later on in the game where Wemby taps Russ on the head, and then Russ has to reach all the way up and taps Wemby on his head, and then Wemby taps him back on the head. Very interesting moments there. But I'll say this. The thing I've noticed most so far just from tonight's game out of Wemby was his confidence is way, way up this year, which is to be expected. He's at this point in your career, when you play that many games, you're a seasoned vet at this point. So I would expect that. But that was like, yeah, he's here, and he's really confident now. He was a little hesitant in the 4 games that the Nuggets played against the Spurs last year. But, man, tonight he was talking trash. He was going at it with guys. I mean, he is fully confident in what he can do, and he should be, because he's an unbelievable talent. He's a freak athlete. He's 7'10", and it just amazes me still, like, how little all of these massive NBA players look next to Victor Wembanyama. I mean, he makes 7-foot Nikola Jokic look small out there. But that was something I was really curious about leading up to their first matchup last year. Can Nikola Jokic play the same style he does, not passing wise, but just around the rim, backing guys down, the Sombor shuffle, which we saw one tonight. It wasn't over Wemby, but he nailed it. Can he play that same style against a guy like Victor Wembanyama? Well, we're 5 games into this matchup, and the answer is unequivocally absolutely he can. I mean, Joker was just his dominant self again tonight. 41 points for the Joker, 18 rebounds, just missed the triple-double by 1 assist, a couple of steals. Joker was fantastic tonight, besides the efficiency shooting the basketball, 15 to 36. And I will give Wemby some credit there. He definitely affected some of Jokic's shots early on in the game, but I thought Joker got better as the game went along. He's just kind of said to himself, like, all right, I'm just going to go to the rim and whatever happens, happens. And it worked out for him. But yeah, tough loss for the Nuggets tonight against the Spurs. But the good news is we'll see it again tomorrow. They play the Spurs in San Antonio tomorrow. All right, before we get out of here, I would like to get to a few more of your comments here. Grass Valley Greg, nice name there, Greg. Nuggets tonight were the opposite of the Avs last night. Yeah, 100%. It looked like the Nuggets really had this game in the bag. What was it? 2.5 minutes left to go. It was like 108, 103. Denver had the lead. And then the Spurs finished the game on a 10-2 run. Obviously, last night the Avs score 5 goals in the third period in overtime to beat the Sabres in overtime. What a great game that was. I was watching that with my family last night. It was fantastic. But yeah, it was a contrast. Also saw Nathan McKinnon sitting courtside tonight, so that was awesome. All right, let's see here. Shay says Wemby versus Joker is must-see TV. I absolutely, like I said to start the show, this is the premier matchup in the NBA right now, in my opinion. And honestly, I don't even think it's close. And if you disagree, that's fine. But what is the premier matchup, star matchup in the NBA right now if it's not Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama? I mean, that is must-see TV. How this game wasn't an ESPN or a TNT game tonight is beyond me. But it was absolutely fantastic. All right, let's see here. Fishing for Cars. Appreciate you listening. Sick of seeing this team lose to bad teams. You know, the Nuggets have sort of had that tag on them over the last couple of years. For whatever reason, they're really good against the really good teams, and they just kind of crap the bed when they play these bad teams. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they get up for these games or what it is with this team, but you're not wrong. They just, for whatever reason, seem to struggle against bad teams this year. Not just this year, over the last couple of years in the NBA. Now, I wouldn't call the Spurs a bad team. They're actually a pretty good team right now. In fact, they're in the play-in right now. They're 18-16 on the year. This is not last year's Spurs team. You got Victor Wembanyama in his second year, Stephon Castle, 4th overall pick out of UConn. I think he's going to be a really good player. Devin Vassell was excellent tonight. I've always liked him out of Florida State. He was just tremendous tonight for the Spurs. So I wouldn't say this was a loss to a bad team. Now, are the Nuggets a better team overall than the Spurs? Yes, they are. But I get what you're saying. I mean, and they've had poor performances versus bad teams this year. There's no question about that. I mean, just look at the Pelicans game, the Wizards game. I mean, I can go down the list. The Kings, the Jazz, all that kind of stuff. Portland, they lost in Portland to a bad Trailblazers team. So I get what you're saying. My only pushback would be to say that this year's Spurs team is much, much better than last year's team was. And they're going to probably be a playoff team this year. So, I mean, they're 18-16 on the season, and they're in the 8 seed in the West right now. But the Nuggets fall to 19-14 on the year. All right, that's going to do it for the post-game show tonight, everybody. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow night for Nuggets in Spurs again. I like these back-to-backs. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about how they're not huge fans of these, but I think it's great. And it's Wemby and Jokic, so how could you not like that? It's going to be really interesting to see that tomorrow night. And then the Nuggets have 3 games at home after that against Boston, the Clippers, and the Brooklyn Nets coming up on the 7th, 8th, and 10th. This is the most games the Nuggets will play in any month of the season. They play 15 games in the month of January. So this really will be a test to see where this team is at about midway through the month of January. And I've said throughout the season, I've said this, about a month or so ago, that by the middle of January, you're really going to know what you have with the roster as constituted. And we'll really see if the team needs to do something at the trade deadline. But give them another week or two. We'll see what's what. And they keep losing to teams they should beat, then guys are going to get traded. I think it's really as simple as that because you cannot waste the Nikola Jokic era. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for the post-game show tonight. My name is Dan Tanner. Really appreciate you tuning in to In the Paint. The Spurs get the 113-110 victory over the Nuggets as the Nuggets fall to 19-14 on the season. Like I said, they'll be in San Antonio against Wemby and the Spurs tomorrow night. Pre-game coverage on 92.5 starting at 5:30 with Berto and Kaz. And then I'll be with you on the post-game show around probably 8:30 or so. So please feel free to tune in for that. And I'll be reacting to Nuggets and Spurs tomorrow night. And we'll see if will the Nuggets double team Wemby early on. That's what I'm going to be looking for early on in tomorrow's game. And can Jamal Murray have a bounce back game? Was tonight a blip on the radar for him as he's been ascending over the last month or so? Was tonight a step back moving forward, or was it just sort of a blip on the radar? And we'll see the Jamal Murray we saw over the last month or so of the season. We will see you tomorrow night, but that's going to do it for the post-game show. Have a great night, everybody.